Obviously, there's a lot to talk about in the MLB. We are third of the way through the season. Memorial Day always marks that time for the baseball calendar, at least. But there's still problems with the Yankees, at least. The Mets look a little better than, but I want to start with the Yankees, and they've had trouble at the plate. I mean, last night, Clint walks it off, and it's a little bit of a jolt of electricity. Hopefully, that gets the bats at least awake, but that has not been the story for the Yankees before that. They dropped the series to the Blue Jays. They get swept by the Tigers, and they dropped game one to the Rays. They had a 4-game losing streak when they did that. Obviously, Clint's walk-off breaks that, but you're still a little concerned if the Yankees because the bats are asleep. Meanwhile, the pitching's been great. So that is not what you usually expect out of the Yankees. Nick, I want to get what are your thoughts on this Yankees lineup that has been struggling as of recently?
I really wish I saved this statistic because it's just so true to how horrible the Yankees hitting has been this year. Uh, Moral of the story, I guess, with the stat of what I was hoping to find was the Yanks have had an absurd amount of lineup changes or different lineups in each game compared to previous seasons. They've had more lineup changes, or they've had more different lineups, excuse me, this season than they have had in the entire 2019 season. To put that in perspective, we're a third of the way through, and they've had more different lineups than they did in a whole season 2 years ago. So it just shows there's no flow, no rhythm. Obviously, you got some guys been getting hurt. You know, Hicks has gone down for a while. Stanton's been in and out. But it's just you can't find a groove. And baseball is just such a sport where you have to find a groove at some point. You can drop a few games in a row, but then you have to go win consecutive games if you want to bounce back. You know, so the Yankees started out very cold, and then they got hot, and they've been, you know, kind of bouncing back and forth. But the thing that just really summarizes this whole kind of slump they've been in was the series this past weekend against the Tigers. They got swept by the Detroit Tigers, who are one of the worst teams in the league, although they have been playing decently since. But they got swept by the Detroit Tigers for the first time since 2000 this past weekend, and I didn't even want to watch that baseball. It was so bad. They lost on a walk-off home run on a 3-2 two-out pitch. Gleyber Torres made, I think, 2 or 3 errors in one game where they lost 6-1. It just was perfectly encapsulated what the atrocity of New York baseball was right now. And this Yankee team is far too good to be performing like this. I mean, hallelujah, Clint Frazier hit that home run last night. That was a desperate win, especially against the Rays, who are now above us in the standings. They've been hot in the past, I think, couple weeks maybe. They've won many, many games. But, yeah, I don't really know. I don't have an answer, personally, because if you're subbing in a lot of different guys, it's hard to find a rhythm. Baseball's all about rhythm, hitting, pitching, and they're not really finding it, I don't think. So I don't know what the solution would be. I really just think this is something you have to play out of. But the question then comes, when does the slump end? That's what really I think the Yankees, as well as their fans, are trying to understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a tough time if you're in the Yankees lineup. I mean, there's been guys you in the past would rely on that have just not shown up. I mean, take a guy like DJ LeMahieu. I mean, you give him the extension, he's your guy, and he's hitting under 270, and he had 3 extra base hits in the month of May. I mean, he's someone that's searching to find his rhythm, and you expect him to be all right. Season starts, LeMahieu's 300 the rest of the way, and that's a little concerning. I mean, maybe it's the way the MLB's trending, where batting averages, singles, and doubles all-time lows, but I would expect DJ LeMahieu to not be a part of that trend. I would expect him to be better than that. And I think the same goes to other guys. I mean, Gleyber Torres does not look the same this year. I mean, he is the 5th worst exit velocity in the MLB. I mean, that is a really bad stat for a guy who hits homers at the shortstop position. And he's not been great defensively. I mean, like you said, he made 2 errors Monday, and I almost like Urshela better there. I think he is better defensively, even though he's not really a shortstop. So I think there's definitely a lot of questions with this Yankees lineup. I mean, right now, Aaron Judge is the only player hitting better than 270. So when that's the case, it's tough to see this lineup really helping you win games, and you're putting so much pressure on the pitching, which can only be so good for so long. Like, obviously, Garrett Cole is going to be Garrett Cole. Herman's looked great, but now Corey Kluber's out. He was a guy that we were relying on when you went on that win streak. Without him, this pitching staff is depleted, and you're going to need to get the bats going if you want to win ball games. The Yanks are winning right now as we speak, but they're up 4-2 in the bottom of the 6th. But there's still a lot to be seen with what this hitting lineup can do. And I mean, Nick, my question would be for you. I mean, when do you hit the panic button on this New York lineup? I mean, I was doing it earlier in the season. They looked like they were turning around, but now we're back to square one. Are you hitting the panic button? Or are you going to wait and see?
I'm not gonna hit it, and here's why. I don't think there's really any direction they could go if you were to hit that panic button. There's clearly talent on this team. It's been seen through statistics in past years, but it's the same old story with the Yankees where if you look through the past decade, really, ever since their '09 championship, they've maybe had one or two players who hit above 290, whether it was Cano and Jeter, or I don't even think who did it recently for us. I mean, obviously LeMahieu in the past couple of years, but they have a couple guys who have good batting averages, who get on base and aren't looking to hit the long ball. And then you have about 7 or 8 guys in the lineup who really are only long ball threats. Gary Sanchez, Giancarlo Stanton. Aaron Judge does a little bit of both, but he's primarily long ball threat. And if they're not going to hit their home runs, what's going to happen? You're not going to score. It's just been, if you look at final scores of Yankee games this season, it's just been so low scoring for them. They can't find the offense anywhere. And I don't know what direction you could change in now. I would have said in the offseason you change it, and I did think that at first. There were a lot of guys we could have gone and got, primarily with pitching. But again, you could have Felix Hernandez comes to mind whenever I make this comparison. You could have the greatest pitching in the league, but if you're going to go out and score 0 to 2 runs, you're not going to win most of your games. And that's what is really happening with this Yankees team. Garrett Cole can pitch 6 innings, give up 1 run, and they may lose 2-1. So it's just not enough. I don't know if you panic. I don't know what direction you go if you panic. Because trust me, as a Yankee fan, I have been panicking, thinking, how are we losing so many games? I think it's 30-24 is the record right now, maybe 30-25. Through 60 games in the season, I expect it to be a little more than above 500, and we're barely squeaking by that. So I don't know where you can go if you panic. Maybe make some trades, but that's not really the MLB style of trading to blow up. I don't know. We have a lot of bad contracts, in my opinion. I like Aaron Hicks, but he has a bad contract, especially because he's been very injury prone. And it is a Yankee curse too. Guys get hurt. Guys, when you need guys to play most, they get hurt. And I think Tyler Wade has started in center field. He's not a spectacular baseball player, in my opinion. The stats show it as well. So where you need a guy like Hicks out there who walks, gets on base. So I can't really hit the panic button because it's still early enough where they just need to go on a hot streak. And I think that the talent and potential of this team is there to do that. Maybe next year you could hit the panic button because just like, well, I don't remember the team. Oh, like the Blazers, like I said before, this Yankee team, similar to the Blazers, has been relatively the same for the past 4 or 5 years as far as who plays day in and day out. And that's maybe where you decide, okay, we might have to make some changes. But in mid-season or a third of the way through this season, there's still enough time they can regather, regroup, and go for it. So I'm not panicking just yet.
Yeah, I think for the reason you're saying that the Yankees still have time to put together a run and make this postseason. I mean, they sit at third in the AL East right now. They're 30-25, like you said. But I think they can still give a chance to win this division or lock in one of those wild card spots. But I was talking about this off the air before the show. What worries me about this Yankees team is that they are so streaky. It feels like it's either the whole lineup's on or none of the lineup's on. And unfortunately, right now, at least, none of the lineup's on. And that worries me because it's a long season and let's say they get hot, but if they get cold at the wrong time, then that's a problem. If they get cold at the ALDS, or if they get cold right around the wild card game, or if they get cold at the playoff push, are they missing the playoffs? Are they making the playoffs? If they get cold at the ALDS, they're obviously not going to win that series. So these are things that you're worried about if you're in the Yankees front office, if you're on that team, if you're a fan of the team. If the team is so streaky right now that I'm worried about the Yankees that they get cold at the wrong time and they're going to miss the playoffs or they're going to be an early bounce. And the flip side of that coin is they could be really hot at the right time and they can propel to the World Series. And I understand that with this team, but so far what we've seen from them is short time periods where this lineup has gotten hot, maybe a series or two, but the long duration of this third of the season that the Yankees have played in has been cold streaks by their hitters. So that worries me a lot. And I'm going to hit the panic button for that reason because I've seen nothing outside the pitching that would tell me this team is ready to make a playoff push and compete. I don't think they're anywhere near the Dodgers or Padres. I think the other team in Queens is better than them. I think they might have a better shot to make it far in the postseason. We're going to get to that in just a bit. But for those reasons, I'm a little worried about this Yankee team, and we can wait a couple weeks, see how it goes when we get at the end of June and the start of July. But as of right now, I'm a little worried.